All right. Well, hello, everyone. I am Kee-Yoon Nahm, Assistant Professor at Illinois State University and a regional editor at the Theater Times. I'm very excited to host a discussion with some of the artists who created Borderline, which is a part of the 2021 International Online Theater Festival. So I'd like to just start with introductions. Could you just please say your name and what role you played in the production? Kyungsung, could you start us off, please?
Yep. My name is Kyungsung Lee, and I'm a theater director, and I also was the director of the production Borderline.
Thank you. Jürgen, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Jürgen Berger, and I'm planning and doing international co-productions, theater co-productions, and I'm writing text and working as an author.
And dramaturg.
Dramaturg, yes.
And HeeJin, could you introduce yourself as well?
A producer of the production Borderline, and I mainly, start this process with Jürgen and Kyungsung and kind of do some couple of researches. And I think what I did last year as a producer is pretty much taking care of all different kind of risk and make some plan B and plan C.
And I definitely have questions about the process, especially the changes that you've had to make because of the pandemic. But just so that our viewers have a little bit more context into the kind of international and kind of collaborative nature of this project, Borderline is also a collaboration among 3 different entities, right? So there's Creative VaQi, a theater company in South Korea. There's producer group DOT, which is also in South Korea, and then Residenztheatre in Germany. I think maybe it might help if you could talk a little bit about these 3 institutions separately, and then we can talk about how you all work together. So Kyungsung, could you tell us a little bit about Creative VaQi? What kind of work does the company do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Creative Aki is a theater company based in Seoul, and we are interested in our realm of everyday life and also the society. So we normally don't start from a writer's text as a literature. When we, in the beginning, normally find a social issue or a theme and like research and do lots of workshops and then transform the findings into the vocabulary of performances. That's kind of our work.
And how long has the company been working?
The company was founded in 2008, so it's been 13 years now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
HeeJin, could you maybe talk to us a little bit about how producer group DOT, well, first of all, what producer group DOT is and how it got involved in this project?
Oh yeah. Producer group DOT is like a producers collective. So it's like an umbrella organization of different, independent producers, and we're working together with some other co-artists from theater and contemporary dance and multidisciplinary work, and it's pretty much cross-genre, based. And Creative Aki is one of our co-artists that we have been working for many years. So, depending on some, how should I say, depending on what kind of networking we are having, and we can just create some other collaboration. It could be like a touring. It could focus on co-production, and Borderline is one of our main co-production of the year last year.
Thank you. And Jürgen, I wasn't sure what your relationship with Residenztheatre is. Are you affiliated with the institution, or do you have a history with the theater?
No, that's a I forgot to say that I started to work as a theater critic in Germany. So my first relationship to all the theaters in Germany is as a theater critic. But then I started to do these international productions, and the situation is that I'm mostly, let's say, I work together with independent groups like Creative VaQi in Seoul, and let's say I'm searching for the right theater in Germany, which can do the co-production. That's very different. It depends on the theme you are doing, depends on the group in Asia or in South America I'm working with. And then let's say in the end, I think we develop together with this theater what we are doing. First, we develop together, as we have done in the case of Borderline, together with the group. So for a very long time, then comes the German theater. And as you know, in Germany, we have the theaters, the state theaters and the theaters of the cities have a big dramaturgy, let's say many persons working in the dramaturgy. And so then comes the next process that dramaturg works together and is also a part of this developing team.
Mm-hmm. So what was part of your role kind of like helping to make those connections and also kind of like making sure that the content of the piece and also the kind of logistical and planning, all of that works together?
Yes, yes. So let's say in this special case of Borderline, we worked very long together before it came last year to this, how you say, culmination, that we had this big problem with COVID-19, and that we have to change everything, and that we have to rethink our project. But let's say I think we worked before for 2 years together, and let's say from the first time when Kyungsung and HeeJin and me are meeting, speaking about what we want to do. And then when the Residenztheatre come also was part of it, then it changed, let's say the direction of our project changed a little bit, because I say only one example. Let's say that at the time we decided that we want to have the premiere in Germany on the 3rd of October, because this 3rd of October is the day of the reunification in Germany. Right. And so we wanted to have it to do it there. Yeah, this was under the influence of Residenztheatre, and it was let's say a good step of development we have done. Yeah. But when we decided this, we didn't know that COVID-19 will come. So COVID-19 also changed everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to go back to the beginning of that timeline that you just laid out for us and ask, how did this project begin? What was the original vision? What were you interested in exploring when you first started those conversations for this international collaboration? I don't know who the best person to take that question would be.
Jürgen, you came to Korea in 2016 to make another article for another Korea-German co-production, Iphigenia in Exile, The Wall, and Kyungsung, and some other 3 other Korean director and 1 German director collaborate together for this production, and I was a producer. And then later, and Jürgen and I also, co-program one of the festival in Germany. And I think because of his background, his family history background, he also had some interest about this Korean, like divided situation, reunification issue, and he came up with this idea, and also, Kyungsung is also very interested in this kind of social context. So, and Kyungsung's previous work talks about this, to Korea reunification issue as well. So, as a producer, I thought it might be interesting working together for Kyungsung as a director, some sort of series of like work that connect to his previous work, and as well as Jürgen.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Maybe some, yeah, they might have some other ideas or opinions as well.
Yeah, let's say when in our first discussions together, let's say we said that we want to bring two themes together. One theme is the theme of reunification, and this big difference that we in Germany had this reunification, and in South Korea you are waiting for a reunification, and there's a great wish in parts of the society for this reunification. And on the other hand, we want to have a look on the situation of refugees, in South Korea and also in Germany, because let's say when we first met, it was just 1 year before that we had this great wave of refugees from Africa, from Syria and so on to Germany, and it was a big issue in Germany. And also the theme of reunification is very near connected to this theme of refugees, because we in Germany also had before reunification, when you have the Berlin Wall and so on, a lot of East German people came to Western Germany and were handled in Western Germany like refugees. Let's say like people which are not as worth as Western peoples and so on. And you all, let's say, when you always have the theme that refugees are handled like a minority, like people who has not the same rights as the people who are the inhabitants and so on. So this was I think this was the focus we wanted to have in our work.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to hear that the theme of the refugee crisis and migration was a part of the project from the beginning, because I personally find it very interesting that even though the piece seems concentrated on German history and Korean history, it actually, the scope expands to think about really the entire world and the movement of people across national borders. Kyungsung, could I ask what your response to kind of that theme and those ideas and how they developed over the course of the piece from a Korean perspective? Because obviously we can think about North Korean refugees, but in the past few years, Korea, like, this has become a social issue as well, right? People seeking asylum in Korea, or refugees who are entering South Korea.
Yeah, when I also remember that it was like between 2017 and 18, and when HeeJin and Wilgen talked about this project for the first time and shared his plan and idea. And I remember that I had two feelings. Like, one was that this is a theme and issue that I'm really interested in, because I've been experiencing Korean society as a very closed society, and there has been lots of I would say discrimination toward the others who comes outside of this society. I mean, the North Korean refugees are one of them. And I thought it could be an interesting opportunity for us to reflect our society throughout these collaborations. But at the same time, one of my other feeling was that this could be very difficult project that
Mm-hmm.
that we cannot just compare these two societies parallelly. I mean, it has a different history and still has a different context. And we were apart, and I didn't know Wilgen very much as a person. So everything was very vague, but as a producer, I trusted HeeJin very much, and I thought there must have been a reason why she suggested this project to us, to our company. So, but as I started this project, beside this huge theme, for me, it was very important to set up like I would say a friendship with Wilgens and also our co-partners and creators. And as I get to know Wilgen personally, like when I visited Munich and we spent lots of times together, we traveled toward the VaQi, which is the border of the West and East Germany in the DDR time. So I could feel that this issue is very important for him, that he really wants to talk about it, and it's very important for him to deal with it. And also when I met the Florian, who was the ensemble actor of the Residence Theatre, he had lots of connection, inner connection to this borderline issues, because he was born in East Germany and came to West Germany and had a many thought about it. So and after the pandemic, when they decided to come to Korea for rehearsal, they thankfully they agreed to have a 2 weeks quarantine, but that's quarantine not in their house, but it's quarantine in a very weird hotel. So I mean, that's a very big. That was very big. There must be a very big thing for them also. But they chose to afford to do that, and we spent a very intense 3 weeks rehearsal together. And among those times, yeah, I felt like we really connected. So, and as we connected, then even though we are physically apart, we thought that we could do something out of it, out of our experience. So, I mean, technical connection was also very important, but before that, our personal connection was fundamentally more important to make this project. I would say, yeah.
I mean, I appreciated the quarantine section in the piece where Florian, the actor, kind of like gives this monologue, right, of like partially going crazy, being trapped indoors for 2 weeks. Jürgen, were you also in quarantine during that same period?
Yeah. Florian and me were in quarantine. Let's say room at room. Yeah, he was in the next room, but we couldn't see. We only couldn't have contact with the telephone. That was a very interesting situation. Yeah, it was, let's say, for me the most extraordinary situation. Let's say one of the most extraordinary situations in my life, yeah, because let's say you cannot think or you cannot you don't know before that you are really if you are in a quarantine situation like that you are absolutely confronted with yourself. There's always one person in this room, and that's yourself, and you have to stay together with yourself. So that's one of the hardest experience I made during this 2 weeks. But it was okay. It was okay, and for me, let's say as I made together with HeeJin these interviews with North Korean refugees first. This was I would say this was the ground where we wanted to work on, and also the ground was also the interviews we made when Kyungsung and Sung Ik were in Germany, and we traveled around and make also interviews. And then came this very interesting experience for me, how the actors from Creative VaQi are working with this interview material, with this very personal material, and how and the second very big experience for me was that Kyungsung always tried to find out this inner private point where inside of myself. From this point, I'm connected to the themes of refugees. Yeah, he tried to find it not only with Florian but also with me, and that was also a very interesting experience for me. Yeah, that I have to think about again why I'm so connected to a theme like that.
I see. So the monologues that Florian has in the piece, are they all his experiences, or are they a combination of things that you wrote and Florian's actual memory?
That's a combination. Yeah, there's one monologue. We have done together. That was in the time when we had when Kyungsung was in Munich. And we had a workshop together. We had something like rehearsals, and then I sit together with Florian, and we have done this text. Yeah, we spoke together. I have written, and then, but let's say this monologue in the tent where he's speaking about his experience in the quarantine, the 2 weeks of quarantine, that Florian has written, and I have. Deal with this as a dramaturg. Yes, I shortened it a little bit and so on. That was, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of how very personal and intimate some of these stories that are shared are, one moment that really stands out to me is when the actor Jin, I believe his name is, he is performing one of the interview kind of like archival material from one of the interviews from a North Korean refugee, and then there's a kind of like they say cut, right, and then he breaks out of character and he is himself, except that he also talks about how he had conversations with his own friends, a friend who is a North Korean refugee. Kyungsung, could you talk a little bit about that choice to sometimes kind of like blur the boundary between when actors are speaking about themselves or when they are kind of taking on the voice of another person?
Yeah, that text was also based on Wilgen's interview with one North Korean refugee. And actually after Wilgen interviewed him, and before the borderline, like HeeJin introduced in the beginning, that we made a performance with a dialogue between Jin and that North Korean refugee, because they were in a very similar age and generation, but who was born in different country. So that's so Jin had some kind of connection with the text and the person. And also Jin as an actor, he didn't want to express himself personally very much on the stage, but or I would say a private part of his life. But he is more, when I had a conversation with him, he was more interested in how to represent this character, which can be stereotyped easily. So he wanted to show that process of how he can represent the North Korean refugee on the stage. So, and I thought if you just only represent him as a character, then it can be something too, I would say, too obvious. that we just present a character and that's all. So we decided to break that fiction at one point, and also talks about the dilemma of approaching the others as a character. So I think we always confront the complexity and the dilemma to represent the other on stage. So it was important for us to show that process.
Yeah, it made me think a lot about how refugees and minorities in any society are often spoken on behalf of or spoken to, as opposed to giving them the opportunity to speak for themselves. And I felt like this is a piece that is asking those questions and trying to figure out what is the best way to approach this dilemma, right? Of wanting to explore these issues, but not not kind of over determining, right, the way that refugees are talked about in society. So the 3-week rehearsal that you had in Korea after the quarantine, that was the last time that everyone was like together in person. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So by that point, I mean, so this is obviously during the pandemic. Did you know what the format of the eventual performance would be by that point, or were you still in the middle of figuring all of that out?
I think we have to decide it. It was a very quick decision. Let's say it was just shortly before Florian and me are traveling to Seoul, or I think HeeJin, do you remember? I think it was when we arrived in Seoul.
Then we actually think about just presenting, our performance physically on the stage, but then there were like this COVID-19 issue, and all the border has closed. So that means we have to get a visa to visit Germany. And although this performance was supported by Goethe Institute, which is the government organization, and they try so hard to get a visa for us, but then it didn't really work at that point. So we had to find a plan B. And what if we can't present our performance in Munich? And so Kyungsung and Jürgen and everyone has to just discuss what's plan B and what's plan C. And interestingly, on the first day of setup, I got a phone call from German Goethe Institute, and that German embassy will give us issue us a visa. We can pack up our bag and leave for Germany tomorrow. You can do it. That's what I heard, and I was like, yeah, we are in the middle of setup. What can we do with that?
Yeah, that was very interesting. Yeah, because let's say we had this first meeting, Zoom meeting we had when Florian Lee was in quarantine. We had this Zoom meeting with Almut Wagner. She's the chief dramaturg of Residenztheatre, and then we made the decision and that we really want to do it live. That Florian is on stage at the Residenztheatre at the Marstall, and that the Creative VaQi actors are really live in Seoul on stage. And it was Kyungsung who said he really want to do it like that, because the big problem was that in the Residenztheatre they didn't know if they really can do it technical. That was the big point, because let's say I have to say it's no legend that we in Germany are not really the world masters in technical things. Yeah, we are really, let's say, a little bit in the Middle Ages when it comes about the internet and so on. So, but let's say then at Residenztheatre they make a great effort that we really have the technical possibilities to do it. And let's say this was and the second decision was when, let's say, the Goethe Institute in the background really worked hard with the embassy in Germany and in Korea, and then in the end they succeeded that that you get a visa but we had to say, sorry, it's too late, yeah, because we are so far now with our production, we cannot change again. Yeah. But it was very hard. It was really very hard because, let's say, you have to think about the big desire of mostly of the actors are really to be together on stage, yeah, and let's say also for Creative VaQi actors to come to Munich because there is the Oktoberfest and so on in Munich, and even they knew that at that time there will be no Oktoberfest, yeah, but coming to Munich, staying together on stage, and then let's say in the end of the performance there is the audience and so on, and I think that was very hard for the whole production that we cannot be together at the premiere. Yeah.
I see. That's very interesting to hear. I mean, I sincerely hope that in the future you can have another production where all the actors are in the same theater. But there was something so familiar about the experience of wanting to meet your collaborator, but having to rely on screens and technology. That's the life that we've all been living for the past year and a half. So fundamentally, it was a very powerful experience to watch the actors exchange questions and talk to one another. And also not only, kind of come into contact with one another across this technological divide, but also language, because sometimes, one person might ask a question in German, but then the other person respond in Korean, and it's as if they can magically understand each other.
Yeah. So it was especially between Florian and the actors of VaQi, yeah, to have really this very close personal connection. That was very, very important that we succeeded like that.
At the same time, I am a little surprised to hear how late a decision it was to use the kind of like live like video technology, because the technological elements, the media, it felt so seamless. It felt like so right and perfect for the piece. Was there a plan to use media in some way in the piece even before you had to change the plans, or did you have just a very different performance in mind?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't had a plan to use like online connection video, but I remember maybe we had a plan to project a video image, but not like online connection technology.
So the footage of the actors walking across the chain link fence in Kusang and things like that, you were thinking of using that, right?
And VaQi's previous work also contains a lot of media resources, and Kyungsung is one of the director who uses those kind of media so well. Well, context-wise, then we never thought about it's going to be like a Zoom online, streaming in the venue. Yeah.
When I just like to share this, our last rehearsal on the stage, that when we had a final rehearsal at Residenztheatre, the audience there didn't recognize that it was live actually before we told them. So most of the audience thought that it was pre-recorded and that we were just playing it. So I remember the intendant, the artistic director,
Andreas Beck,
Andreas Beck suggested us just to let the audience know in the beginning that this is live and the technical problem can be occurred. So, but please excuse for that. And by saying that, I thought I found out that the experience of audience became quite different. That by already recognizing this potential risk of that it can be disconnected, made their experience more, I think, unique. So yeah, I remember that point was very interesting. I mean, these days we talk a lot about, you know, what still makes theater a theater in this when all the theater works presented online, but still what should we what do we need to still preserve? And I think this potential risk, having this potential risk is something very important. It's not only about like co-presence on the stages, but when you have this potential risk of disconnected or just disappearing, I think that makes the theater quite different from like an anti-live, like when you just project recorded work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's the possibility of failure that makes, when it works, it becomes more meaningful, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that when we had this last rehearsal together in Germany, it's let's say when you have this last rehearsal before the premiere, all the people of the theater where you are doing it are coming to this last rehearsal to have a look on it and then to discuss it. And it was also for me and also for Almut Wagner, who knows what we are doing. It was a big surprise when Andreas Beck said, "Oh, we have to think about one point. It's so good and it's so perfect that the audience is thinking that it's pre-produced." Yeah. So it was, let's say, we were inside of the process and we didn't recognize this point. Yeah. So we had to make a little change. Let's say very quickly to write a text for Florian in which he can say, okay, the colleagues of Creative VaQi are really on stage in the moment, and it's 2 o'clock in the night in Seoul in the moment, and so on. And this was, let's say, this was very important for the German audience because the focus is changing when you know that.
I think that's a good thing for the viewers of this discussion to also keep in mind, that there was so much unpredictability and so much improvisation, right, and kind of creative thinking that went into, you know, this very it seems very polished, right? It seems like this was the plan all along, but it's so interesting to hear you talk about how things changed so much and you had to really think on your feet. As a last question, this goes back to something that Kyungsung, you just said. Are there things that through this process that you're interested in that you'd like to continue to explore or develop even after the pandemic? Things that you learned about theater during the pandemic that you might want to carry forward?
You mean in this project for the?
No, just for your, you know, your work in general, things that you're interested in as a result of going through this experience.
Well, like recently, my question as an artist is that has Corona really changed or influenced my way of working? I mean, in the Borderline project, because it was an international collaboration and it had to be, we had to find a strategy to deal with the situations, but more in the fundamental level, has it really influenced on my way of working on the making theater? So, or do I really need to find a strategy to deal with it? Do I really need to reflect the situation to my way of making work so far? So in one way, I say yes, because now everything has changed. The physical relationship and way of looking at the theater on stage from the audience side is changed. But on the other side, I feel like that's that I don't want to be influenced by it in one side. So inside of me, it's always having a conflict between it, and also in a lot of festival or in a lot of most of the curators, they talk about the future shape of theater. And sometimes I get very impressed and inspired by it, but sometimes that kind of projections of future makes me a little bit tired. That's, I mean, what's now? I mean, yeah, it has festival needs to always project the future of the art. That's, I don't know, for me that's too something ahead. I want to what's now, what's really happening inside of me. So it's I would say it's a struggle that I'm experiencing now. So I cannot really say that I will find something under this circumstance and make something out of it or not. So I just want to introduce my struggle, struggle at this moment. Yeah.
I think it's a development, and we will see how the experience we made during this pandemic time, for example, in working online together, how we will use it in the future. But let's say also one thing I have learned during the pandemic time is don't speak too much about the future, because you don't know what will happen. This was one of the big things I learned. Yeah, let's say, because we always said, okay, let's make a plan. What we will do in 1 month, but the pandemic changed the situation so rapidly that let's say every plan we have to rethink again and to cancel and to have a new plan and so on. So I think it's also in the situation we are now. Let's be. It's better to be calm in the moment and to wait how let's say what this pandemic has really done with the theater. Yeah, in Germany, for example, I think the biggest question will be if the cities and the state will reduce the money for the theaters, because they spend so much money during the pandemic time that after the COVID-19 we will have a big problem with the state money in Germany. And let's say in the past you have seen that the first they are thinking is to shorten the cultural budgets. So we will see what will happen. So.
I think well, I have a little bit different perspective from our artists, because I think because I'm a producer who has to take care of different kind of risk and make different plans. So well, under this pandemic situation, it was really good time for us to try many different kind of things and just imagine what the future theater would be like. And it's not like we are worried, the theater will, the format of the theater will change or something. It's more about what can we explore and what can we discover. And I am at the moment, I'm more focused on it, and just, and it is also a role of the producer that kind of gives different samples and example to the artists, so they can just make their own choice out of that.
Especially with Borderline, I think we've learned, because it was the first time, I think also for the German theater, to do this direct online acting. Let's say for international co-productions, that's what we learned during the pandemic, that you really can do it. It's very good for one point. Let's say a big problem for international co-production is that you have this premiere in the two countries which are participating in the co-production, and afterwards it's finished, because you never have the money to do it again. But with this directly online streaming, you really can do it again. That's a very good result. Let's say a result of the pandemic. Yeah.
Well, what I'm hearing is that you know, like there's a lot of, I think, like curiosity and I think a lot of interest in these changing situations and what this can mean for the future of theater. And I think that Borderline as a piece, it reflects the attitudes that you just shared, not about, you know, like coming up with specific answers, but more about seeing what's out there, exploring and responding, right, to change. Well, thank you all so much for sharing your time with us, and also sharing this piece with our audience. I really hope that you know, there can be another version of this that is kind of like closer to what you originally had in mind, but also going back to Jürgen, what you said, who knows what's going to happen in the future? Maybe it'll evolve in a completely new direction that none of us can imagine right now.
May I ask you one question? Like, who are the main the audiences of this festival? Like, they are mainly from USA or?
A lot. Well, so the website, the Theater Times, that hosts this festival, it's all in English, right? So it's a primarily English-speaking audience. I would say primarily from North America and from the UK. But you know, we cover theater from all around the world, so we do have a very wide like a base of readership and also writers from all across the world. So hopefully this can be another opportunity to introduce this piece to a broader audience.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you very much. Yeah.